Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another trade recap. Today I'm going to be going over the trade that I should have took today, but unfortunately wasn't paying attention at the time and ended up missing it. So yeah, with that in mind, let's get into what I was thinking coming into market open. So obviously coming in here, overall definitely leaning a lot more bullish than I was bearish. Short term, if anything. Now we did have an SMT inside of a daily gap, inside of a weekly gap. So we had an SMT inside of a daily gap, and we were distributing away from this SMT. We also have an unfilled 4 hour above here with NYAM session highs from yesterday still intact, and obviously low resistance building up to that 4 hour, and obviously delivering from sell side, disrespecting bearish PD rays and respecting bullish moving higher. Pretty simple enough. Coming into market open, I was leaning a lot more bullish. Short term, if anything, until this 4 hour at minimum, I was leaning bullish. And yeah, with that in mind, we had a 30-minute fair value gap. It could have been an hourly. No. So there's a 30-minute fair value gap opening up at market open. So I was simply just looking for a PO3, something like a just accumulation manipulation into the 30-minute and then distribute higher. That's all that I was looking for. Now the S&P 500 was in a very similar spot as well. I had this exact sort of condition going on into market open. As you can see, this is 9:30. Yeah, as we can see, so pretty similar spots and similar draws. And yeah, with that, we actually, to be fair, we did have an SMT, so they weren't really in a similar spot because the S&P 500 was already in this 4 hour, but overall still leaning bullish on Nasdaq, just because of how the higher time frame narrative has been looking leading up to this unfilled 4 hour. So yeah, with that in mind, let's get into market open and see what we do. So market ends up ripping lower here on the Nasdaq and setting up for a potential nice 930 PO3. Then we got this displacement candle here. Now a lot of people ended up taking this trade and a lot of people ended up losing on this trade. And I'm going to be going over why this trade was definitely an avoidable loss if you simply understand the concept of true manipulation. Now the thing about true manipulation, what I want to get into is lots of people like to use it wrong. And how I mean by using it wrong is a lot of people will overcomplicate true manipulation. They'll think that it's required for every single setup. They'll fade really good setups due to there not being true manipulation, etc., etc. Now, where true manipulation really matters is when it shows that another asset is lacking what it needs to move higher, right? So what that could mean is a lack of displacement, and maybe it's still reacting off of a bearish key level, it's rejecting lower, it doesn't look like it wants to go higher, and it looks like it's lacking the juice or lacking the orders that it needs to move higher. That is how you can determine when true manipulation may be necessary within your setup or not, right? And this is very, very simple. So let's go over this. So as we can see here, Nasdaq opens lower into this unfilled 30-minute fair value gap. We sweep out a small pool of liquidity. Not a bad retracement in this range. And then we get a displacing candle towards some pretty good draws, right? So on paper, hey, this looks like a fire trade. So whoever took this, I wouldn't be mad at yourself at all. This is definitely just a journaling moment. However, if we go and look at the S&P 500 during this time, this was the 932 candle. So as you can see here on the right-hand side of my screen, we have the 930. Obviously, the S&P 500 opening lower with the Nasdaq, and we make a move lower here. But as we can see, we did not come into this unfilled 30-minute fair value gap, and we left LR towards that gap. Now, the thing about this is, obviously you could sit there and say, oh, what about an SMT? There's an SMT inside of a key level. Cool. But look at the 932 candle on the S&P 500. Like, that's straight poo. It's just rejection. It's a huge rejection wick at 932. It is not displacing with the Nasdaq, showing its lack of availability to move higher, right? And then this is a prime scenario where you can recognize that, okay, the S&P 500 still looks like it wants to go lower and take out this draw and then potentially move higher from there, right? When both assets manipulate, in a sense, like when one asset manipulates and we have an SMT, if both assets don't displace at the same time, and in this case, of course, with targets below that it looks like it wants to take, that is a prime example of where true manipulation should be needed, right? So as we can see, 932 candle here, displacing. But if we look at the S&P 500, not displacing, right? It's not following the Nasdaq. It still looks like it wants to move lower and take out this draw before potentially moving higher, right? And as we can see, the setup gets wrecked instantly, simply due to the fact that when you're going to take a trade, especially if you're using SMTs and you're using these key levels, you need to be paying attention to the other asset, because 9 times out of 10, if both assets don't displace at the same time, your trade will usually fail. If they're not on the same page, it's not going to happen, right? The S&P 500 was clearly not on the same page here, and then this is a scenario which I deducted in my head just from journaling over time, and obviously using true manipulation incorrectly in the past, and then learning and journaling, that this is a prime example of when true manipulation is definitely going to be necessary, right? What would have made me potentially take this trade is if the S&P 500 reacted off of this SMT with inside this key level and displaced right through this 1 minute gap, or showed signs of displacing higher towards draws higher, instead of having a rejection wick and a terrible body close looking like it still wants to move lower and take out these draws, right? So that is a prime example of how true manipulation should be used in order to avoid trades. And then of course if we had the reaction there, then that wouldn't have mattered, but as you can see we didn't. So that's how you determine true manipulation being a valid thing to happen in that moment or it not. So don't overcomplicate true manipulation, but it's like if one asset wants to move higher and the other one doesn't want to move higher and it hasn't manipulated yet, 9 times out of 10 there's going to be true manipulation involved before you get your setup. But if both assets have reacted off of an SMT, key level, sweep, whatever, and they're both displacing higher now, then you can determine that, you know, that wouldn't be a scenario where true manipulation is going to be needed. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So with that in mind, let's get into the trade that I should have taken today, which is this simple 5 minute comp. Now this is, I don't even ask me why, but I just wasn't paying attention at this time. I went to the toilet and I came back and it just, I don't even want to talk about it. Not coping, nothing, just whatever. I kind of came back, or kind of locked back in on the charts just as it was happening, and by then it was already too late. So obviously 930 ends up ripping lower here. We end up just ripping through this 15 minute fair value gap. Obviously yet to inverse it, but what we do open is a very, very similar and common scenario in the way we trade. And that is disrespect versus respect, right? We have a very, very strong bearish move lower here, and by no means necessary does it look like we're going to hold this 15 minute fair value gap. And then what do we do to sort of prove that? We open up a 5 minute, right? And this 5 minute is now going to carry the narrative, because if we disrespect this 5 minute and we respect the 15 minute, we can presume price is higher. But if we respect this 5 minute and displace out of this 5 minute, we can presume the opposite. 15 minute is definitely not going to hold. We're going to end up coming down and taking out these slanted lows, potentially London session liquidity, all the way down here. And yeah, it's pretty simple. And obviously, as you can see there, we have this super clean disrespect versus respect moment. We come into this 5 minute fair value gap, and then we immediately just displace right out of it here. We inverse the highest time frame key level, or whatever it may be. We inverse this 1 minute gap. This is the trade that I should have taken, and this is the trade that I wanted to take today. Everything else after this, I just didn't even care anymore, because I knew this was my trade, and I missed my trade today. So what can you do? Is what it is. We learn and we move on. But yeah, this trade just delivers it. It's just done. I don't even want to talk about it. It's a very clean setup, right? And then obviously some people were also wondering about like sponsorship of this 5 minute. See, the thing is, like, you don't need sponsored 5 minute gaps all the time. This was a disrespect versus respect moment. So this 5 minute held power, and this is a good key level to determine where we're going to go to next. An unsponsored 5 minute gap that is genuinely poo would be something like we accumulate in a shitty range and then we slightly break out of it and then we make a 5 minute gap that's really not sponsored by anything. That's when unsponsored gaps are, or when sponsorship is definitely needed, because you're in a shit narrative and there's really nothing to go for. But with here, obviously we have the narrative of us just rapidly displacing through this 15 minute gap, and it's sort of like really just asking, or this 5 minute opens and it's really just saying, like, if we respect this 5 minute while we're inside of a 15 minute and displace out of it, we can strongly presume that this 15 minute fair value gap is going to hold no relevance to what price wants to do today. And then with that in mind, we ended up just taking every single draw, I believe, and then sort of just chopping around, and then, I don't know, I got off. I think I got off, like, basically, my mind and my mental was already gone off, in the sense that I knew I wasn't going to take anything after we ended up taking London session lows, because that was just like final draw for the day. This low down here is like super high resistance still in my book, so definitely didn't want to take anything to do with targeting that. Also, it's ages away. Then as you can see here, after this London session kind of ripping tin, I think we just ended up displacing higher here, and yeah, whatever, chopping around inside this range. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. So trade of the day was 100% this 5 minute continuation here. I would have targeted with this, probably just a 1-to-1, or potentially this, but realistically, yeah, I think let's see this. No, yeah, I just would have targeted a 1-to-1 here, definitely to keep the consistency in check. But obviously low hanging fruit was this, and then ultimately the draw in the end was obviously London session lows. And then yeah, so trade of the day, 100% the 5-minute cont. And this trade up here with the displacing candle at 932, 930 PO3, not a bad trade, but again, that was definitely an avoidable loss if you truly understand what true manipulation is and how to determine when true manipulation is necessary or not. And yeah, except for that, really nothing else that I want to go over. Rest of the session was shite. So yeah, I will catch you guys in the next trade recap, which will be tomorrow. I didn't even bother recapping yesterday or the day before because in my opinion the price action was just so poor, like I didn't really have anything to even talk about, like it was just straight sideways movement. So it's what it is. Didn't journal anything myself from that because, I mean, what's the point? So yeah, except for that, I will catch you guys in the next video. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. And yeah, I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day, and good luck tomorrow in your session if you're trading or not. And if you have any questions for me personally, I will have my Instagram, TikTok, and Discord in the bio of this video. If you guys feel free to go check them out, give me a follow or add me on any one of those platforms and shoot me a DM. I will 100% respond if it's anything got to do with trading related content. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.